Good brand names fit the moment. Great ones move beyond it. Welcome to How I Named It, where I talk with founders and brand owners about how their brand names came to be. I'm Scott Milano, founder of Tange. We're a global naming agency. And today I'm joined by Jason Radisson, founder and CEO of Movo. Movo builds software that helps employers with frontline and hybrid teams get the right people together at the right time. And today we'll dive into how Movo, that brand name, came to be. Jason, welcome to the show.
Scott, thanks for having me on.
We want to talk about all things naming around Movo, but before we get into that, I think we'd love to hear just a bit more about Movo, the business itself. What's it all about?
Well, sure. Briefly, Movo is a software platform based on sensor fusion, the sensors that are on your mobile phone and sensors that are around the workplace, that allows employers to both issue their HR policies and really get them into people's workflow and to enforce compliance. And I think it's just something that we've seen a lot of employers struggle with is they get into this sort of stuck place where they have policies, but they can't really make them real.
In terms of employers, maybe are you able to provide a bit more context around this? Types of businesses?
Sure. Well, a workplace use case that we do a lot of work in is hybrid. So employers that are running hybrid teams. A lot of this came about during the kind of return to office phase and as people were working things out. If you're a white collar worker in this day and age, you probably are experiencing it or know some friends that are struggling with this whole notion of, pandemic's over. These last 5 years, a lot of us have been working from home. Now what happens? I go to the office. It's mostly empty, but then people complain they can't get a desk. What's all of this happening? That's a classic application of Movo. So employees have their exact policy in the application. They know when they're supposed to be in the office, and without doing any of the spyware things or otherwise, or monitoring keystrokes or having cameras around the office, we're able to really provide that whole log on who was compliant, who wasn't compliant.
Super timely now for how things are moving just with workforces, which brings us to a little bit of a discussion around the name Movo itself. And an inside secret for our viewers, myself and my team at Tange, we helped Jason name Movo. So we've been peeking under the hood for quite some time at this point. One of the interesting things about your journey as the founder and leader of this business is the evolution of the business and also the evolution of the names themselves. So you initially started out with a slightly different model under the name Shift One, and then have transitioned into a couple iterations of what you're doing, ultimately landing on the name Movo. Could you talk a little bit about that journey? One, slightly from a business context, but then two, as like a journey through names.
Yeah. Happy to. I'll preface it by saying this is one man's perspective, multiple founder, and I think with that experience, naming is a special thing because ultimately, if you succeed, you end up creating a useful piece of technology out there in the world that can employ millions of people, like some of my previous companies, or dramatically change work environments or do other miraculous things. And so the name is it's somehow personal. And I think in this project, we started out, I have to go a little into the history of the company, but I came out of the gig economy and I wanted to bring a real-time algorithmic mobile product to stodgier places in corporate America, stodgier places in the technology stack. Something like the Uber driver experience, but, for somebody who's working at, a retailer with 200,000 employees. As luck would have it, we started the company right before the pandemic. And during the pandemic, our bread and butter was hiring automation. And I started the company with the name of Shift, which was a very crowded space. It was really just a placeholder and, a little bit of double entendre, but, kind of, nothing somebody hadn't thought of 10 times already, nothing that original, just a placeholder. I had to buy it with the number one because, that was all the budget I gave for naming. And the URLs and really, frankly, our SEO budget was basically zero. And so we had Shift, SH, the number one FT as the name of our company. And all of our earlier clients started calling us Shift One. And then we're like, oh, so I guess the name of the company is Shift One. So we went from sort of like a back of the napkin placeholder to whatever the clients started calling us. And then as the company just completely exploded, our business exploded in that first phase. And all of a sudden we had hundreds of customers and we had all kinds of other dynamics. And we actually needed a name that we could that would be unique enough, that would have its own SEO, that would have a more differentiated set of meanings for clients. And, as we started working together, a lot of the things, I think a lot of the reason that Movo has worked is it's differentiated enough. It, packs a lot of meaning into one word, even for a made up word. It's always the game of, does anybody have this currently? Are we going to have conflicts out there in the market? And, it's a name that does everything we needed it to do. And it's amazing how it's both stretched from, push a button, get a job in the age of the pandemic to now compliance in so many different ways for hybrid workforces, for some of the trickier legislatively driven things, some of the defense work that we're doing also regarding where work is done and being able to kind of live document where work is being performed. And Movo works great for all of that. So I think part of this game, if there's any advice, and certainly you have much more experience in this than I, but my advice to listeners would be it's gotta be you, but at the same time, in your team, but at the same time, it's gotta go as far as your vision goes of where your business could ultimately go.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that we like about it so much is it just really has a lot of stretch. We typically refer
Hmm.
to it as stretch. It can span into the future and
Hmm.
evolve as your business evolves. And I think
Yeah.
that's one of within your work and your company. I mean, you're constantly pushing in new directions as well. And it's great to see that
Yeah.
the name can move along with you. No pun intended. We were developing names for you. We obviously created a lot and you were evaluating them and thinking about them all from various perspectives. For Movo itself, when did it kind of click along the way? What kind of conviction did you have around it early on?
Well, I think there's a little bit of a trade-off there too. You can overfit these things. Where you might have a candidate, you and your team, I'll say, depending on how, realizing many of your listeners do naming inside of a corporate context. But, they're the one that fits perfectly today versus the one that has stretch. The one that has stretch, you'll always have less conviction about. And so it's really hard. I wouldn't say like, oh, Movo was like mid or bottom of our list. But when you're looking at those 3 or 4 names that are really your very short list, there's going to be one that fits you perfect today. And it takes a certain degree of discipline to not pick that one.
Do you remember any of the ones that were part of the process that you didn't pick?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, we had the name Reva, if you remember that one. One. And it had a lot to do with, just the kind of operational hustle. We were very blue collar oriented. We had the extreme blue collar name Clockwork, which, was perfect. And we even went so far to ask several thousand users of the platform their preferences. That was like 2 to 1 the top preference of our blue collar consumers using the platform. So we had candidates, we for sure did.
Yeah, that's interesting. And just talking about the fit and feel for the moment
Right,
where the business was at that time, that name Clockwork in particular was like on, like we nailed it.
right,
However,
right.
things change and things evolve, and that's where a name with stretch, something a little more abstract, even invented, can definitely work in your
Yeah,
favor.
yeah. If we were a timekeeping software or payroll software, that would be amazing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you've worked in big businesses like Uber, Accenture, McKinsey, and then you've had your hands in all types of startups over the years. You've got a lot of perspective, and of all of our clients, I think you just have a very keen sense for the value and power of name. So you've seen a lot, right? What makes a great brand name?
Well, think, and maybe somewhat obvious point, and it's a subtle one, and I would say my approach to the world and building companies is, it's a a numbers-driven, logical, creative way of doing things. I'm an economist and applied mathematician by training, so I think about what's the problem in the world that technology can uniquely solve, and that's my answer to product market fit. There are other people that might do that on a more emotional basis. And I think the thing that a great name has is whatever the client emotionally, their deepest motivation, the thing that they're trying to solve and the emotions that they feel around that. And if you can get there and how your product is going to address that need to be encapsulated in the name. And I think that's what truly great names do. They may even not start out that way. You may start out with a more empty vessel and then you put that into the name. And particularly if you have a large corporate marketing budget, you can spend what it takes to fill that vessel. But that would be my somewhat long answer. It's get to that deep, sort of emotional motivation of the client in your name.
Yeah, I agree. We sort of talk about it as like being able to encode the DNA of the brand, which is inherently linked to in a startup context, the founders of the brand, and being able to just bake it right into the name as succinctly as possible often gets you to the best possible name. Switching gears a little bit, Jason, are you ready to play a game?
Sure. I didn't prepare to play a game, so
Well, let's play one.
I'm fine with being embarrassed, but hopefully this isn't that embarrassing.
I think you're going to enjoy this. I like to call this one Guess That Name. So I'll describe a brand and you
Okay.
guess the name. Are you in?
All right.
Okay. A car that wanted to colonize Mars.
Range Rover?
Close.
Saturn?
Want to take Tesla. Remember when they launched the Tesla into space?
Oh, you're right. Yes.
All right.
I do remember the
Okay.
Roadster in space. Yeah.
Yeah, the Roadster in space. Next one. The yoga pants brand that became a religion.
Lululemon.
You got it, Lululemon. So you're 1 for 2.
1 for 2. All right.
That's pretty good. These are hard. These can be very hard. The next one is a platform that replaced resumes with posts about how everyone's thrilled to announce something.
LinkedIn.
Bingo. A 2 for 3 here. You want a bonus one? Push you over
Sure.
the top?
Sure.
Okay. Our bonus is a toy brand that taught us to step carefully.
It's not Twister.
No, that's a good one though. That's a pretty sweet guess. You want to take one more stab at it?
Step carefully. Lego.
Bingo! You got it. You got it.
Yes. For
Well,
those of us
that was
who, have had kids at home with Lego.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I, as a kid, I played with them growing up, so I remember, having to step carefully over my own mess as well. Well, Jason, thank you so much for taking the time to chat. This was fascinating to get a look into Movo itself and then kind of the context and story behind the name, as well as get your perspective on naming in general. For our viewers, where can they find you and Movo?
Certainly on most social networks. Feel free to write us an email, just hello@movo.co. It's movo.co. You can also find us on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Jason. And thank you for watching How I Named It. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me on, Scott.